Good evening and welcome to the Drive at 5 on the IntellectualRadio.com/iHeart radio station. I'm your host, Roman, and we have a terrific show planned for you today. Please don't forget to stay tuned to the Drive at 5 after the Drive at 5 for Warriors Talk with Rochelle at 6 p.m. Tonight, my guest is a Chicago veteran, and now he is the presumptive mayoral candidate for the city of Chicago. Please give a Drive at 5. Welcome back to Frederick Collins. Welcome back to the drive, sir.
Well, thank you so much, and I want to thank your listeners as well as yourself for having me back on your show. I certainly appreciate it.
So please give IntellectualRadio.com/iHeart radio station an update since the last time you were on the drive.
Oh, wow. You're going back at least 10 years, a little over 10 years. Pretty much, I'm a 29-year veteran Chicago police officer. I've been doing community activism for about 30 years, maybe 34, actually. And I'm a father of 3 and a grandfather of 3 grandchildren. And I've put 3 kids through college, and they're still in my pocket. And yeah, and just looking forward to just continuing my community service and giving back to my community.
What is your platform for Mayor of Chicago?
My platform for Mayor of Chicago is public service. As a public servant, that's what I've done all my life. Whether it was working in my church in the community, helping to feed the homeless, passing out coats, food, actually walking bags of groceries to my neighbors' houses. Public service has been my life's work. So actually, my platform is public service. And actually, I'm running for mayor of the city of Chicago to work for the citizens of Chicago. To me, this is an application process. And I want to work for those who want someone to be in office to represent their wishes, their will. I'm not running to govern over the citizens of Chicago. I'm running to work for the citizens of Chicago.
The question everybody wants to know, this is not your first rodeo, this is the second, but you're not a stranger to running for public office. Why you decide this go round to run for mayor? Why did you decide to run for mayor again?
Well, actually, it's a number of factors. The obvious one is that Chicago's just not a city to me. It's my home. And you can tell true Chicagoans because they're proud of Chicago. We're big sports fans. We love diversity within our communities. We love our food. We love our architecture. But yet crime has found a way to destroy all of that. And in the midst of all of that, we will have nothing to leave our children if we don't take a stand. So when community members and fellow neighbors came to me and asked me to run for mayor, I first said, let me think about it. I really wasn't looking to do it. But then after consulting with my family, praying about it, as well as coworkers saying, we really need somebody that's going to represent us. And you have a history of doing just that. And I decided after about 2.5 months, you know what? This is home. And home is worth fighting for. And no one should live in fear at home.
What separates you from a pool of candidates? A lot of people are running for mayor. What separates you from these candidates?
I think the one thing that separates me from every candidate in this race right now is that I'm not a part of the political machine. I'm not a politician. Whether you talk about Paul Vallis, who was appointed as the city's budget director and did a terrible job there. He refused to pay the firefighters and the policemen and other city workers their overtime, which was due to them. They had to take them to court. And the fact that he was over the Chicago public school system and he covered up 120 sexual assaults that happened to our Black children. And he still hasn't apologized for that. And even I give credit to Mayor Lori Lightfoot for calling him out on it. You know, he still won't apologize for that. And he still won't answer the questions of how could he have covered it up. The other thing is you've got also Cam Buckner, who was appointed. He's part of the machine as well. He was appointed to a state rep position. He's never really ran for office, and he's just been in there half of a term, you know, and he's already on probation for 2 DUIs. We need a mayor that's going to be sober. And I know some people say, well, just talk about what you're going to do. Let me tell you something. We have a cancer in our political arena, and you have to identify that cancer. And I approach this situation as a masterful surgeon who's ready to attack that cancer. And that cancer is the political machine and the ideology that you just run and get appointed by the machine into an office, do absolutely nothing. And for the next 2 or 3 generations, they're just going to complain about the fact that nothing gets done. Well, it's time out for that. The new voters, they won't stand for it. And the old voters have decided they've had enough. And so that's why I'm running. And then you've got other candidates in here. We won't leave them out either. You've got Mr. Lopez. They just closed 4 grocery stores in the Inglewood area. That's part of his ward. He can't even keep business open and make sure that there's a grocery store for his constituents to go to. And yet he wants to be mayor. He can't get 2 or 3 aldermen to join with him to do anything or agree to anything. How are you going to do anything as mayor then for 3.5 million people? It just makes absolutely no sense. We've got some real clowns, and I've come to clear out the circus.
You made some serious allegations. Can you elaborate on some of the allegations? One was a sexual assault case. The other one was a DUI. Can you elaborate on those?
I most certainly can. All you have to do is go to the internet, look up the stories. Matter of fact, they have body camera footage of Mr. Cam Buckner. He's drunk. He's got open alcohol in the vehicle. It's his second time. First, he admitted that he wasn't drunk, and then after they gave him the test, the litmus test and all that, he failed all of that. He realized that he was on video, and then he finally pled guilty. I mean, it's no more clear than that. And when you go back and take a look at Paul Vallis, not only did he do a terrible job here in Chicago, but a judge ordered him down when he went to another state. They got rid of him. They fired him. All you have to do is look it up. The information is there. You know, reading is not only fundamental, but it's informational. And it really is appalling that the political machine has just taken over and just destroying a great city and a great state that we have here. And that shouldn't be. You know, we got these people out here that have these names, but they've done absolutely nothing. And I mean, I like the fact that Mr. Wilson, when it comes election time, does contribute to the community. He's 74 years old, and I don't think he has the energy or the health to be the mayor. I'm just being honest with you. I've seen him.
But why you think that?
Well, take a look at him. I mean, I've known of him for the last 6 or 5 years. He just doesn't look like he has the energy for it. And when you ask him certain questions, if you took a look at the last 2 times he ran for mayor, he didn't have a plan the last 2 times. And when you ask him anything now questionable about his plan or what he's going to do, he can't answer any of those questions. And I'm just being realistic with you. You need a mayor that will have the strength to stand up and get the things done that this city needs to have done. And number 1 is public safety. Number 2 is we need to go ahead and modernize our school system. Our school system is still stuck in the 1900s. We got chalkboards when we should have smart boards. Other schools have them. Our children should be using laptops, not carrying around 20-year-old books that break their back. We've got to modernize our education. And another thing is we've got to bring back the fundamentals, math, reading, and science. You know, we have children graduating from high school in the Chicago public school system that don't know how to cursive write, really can't read. We're doing social promotion. Right now, they're trying to hire more teachers in the Chicago public school system because they don't have enough. These are realities. And so we need a realistic mayor that's going to come in and represent the people.
When it comes to education, it's under the mayor. Would you alleviate some of that responsibility to the state to have a check and balance system?
Absolutely. And let me tell you something. I think we need an elected school board. And one of the things I've said,
they do have an elected school board. It's in 2025. They decided to enforce it in
so let me re-examine that paper and say it again. I think we need an elected school board because it's 2022 and we do not have an elected school board. They keep kicking the can down the road. Soon as I am sworn in, you will have an elected school board because I will release certain powers and different things and go ahead and fund a special election to get that done. They've been talking about, an elected school board forever. It's just like the 3rd airport. When is that coming? We know that Amazon is involved in it. We know that they own the land to it. When is that coming? We need real public servants in office who are going to get things done, and not just talk about it and have a uh, a record of getting things done. You know, as a police officer, when I showed up on the scene, I gave service to whoever it was that called. I got things done. They didn't have to wait.
You mentioned education. Education, a lot of people would probably say, okay, you got some good ideas. How you going to pay for it? It's under your control. Money, money, money. How you plan on paying for it?
Well, that's an answer I'm ready to give you right off the bat. The first thing is Chicago doesn't have a revenue problem. It has a spending and a theft problem. You have 5 aldermen going to jail for stealing, okay, for misappropriating tax funded money. You have the mayor of the city of Chicago who's being sued by the feds. This was in the paper just 2 days ago. She's being sued for taking community block grant money that is meant to help with our schools that was started in 1979. This is money that is appropriated by the federal government, that is taxpayer money to go back into our communities to fix broken sidewalks, to do job training, to help those who have homeowners to improve their homes. But there's also money there to help with our schools. You know, the Chicago public school system gets billions of dollars, and I'll say it again, billions of dollars. But when you ask them what was it spent on, you can't see anything. Have you been to one of our high schools? The bathrooms hardly don't work. They're covered up the urinals with plastic bags. There's no tissue in them. I'm just being realistic with you. I served 4 years on the local school council when my kids were in public school. And let me tell you something, it is unbelievable that in this day and age, the only air conditioned room in many of the Chicago public schools is the principal office. Our kids are sweating in there.
And your plan is to change it on day one.
Not only that, but let me tell you this. The next time you use your cell phone, look at your cell phone bill. The city of Chicago has 3 taxes on there. So how are we going to pay for it? We're going to be responsible with the money that we take in, and we're going to stop the thiefdom that has happened in City Hall for decades. The next time you go to pay your gas bill, look at that one. City of Chicago has 2 taxes on that one. Next time you look at your cable bill, they're taking $24 to $30 out of your cable bill, and one of the taxes on there is an amusement tax. Now, I don't know about you, but do you invite all your neighbors into your house every time you turn on your cable TV? Who are you amusing?
And you're going to try and alleviate that. Am I correct?
We're not going to try and do it. This is why I say policies and procedures matter. Because when you implement policies and procedures, you then create a boundary of how things need to function and operate. The problem is, if you just saw this last joke that they called an ethics bill that the mayor just passed, it's not an ethics bill at all. It's just something out there to tell the public, hey, yeah, we we want you to believe that we're all going to straighten up. Yeah, right. That's why we got aldermen going to the federal penitentiary now.
Do you believe you are able to compete and get your voice out to the masses in order to be heard? The reason I say this is because there is what the media wants, the mayoral matchup, not necessarily what the people want or need in Chicago. Your thoughts about each mayoral candidate should be heard, because when they mention a pool of mayoral candidates, you're not mentioned.
Well,
What you say to that?
I say the first 5 months of this year, they tried to do everything they could to block our voice. When I say our voices, I'm not by myself at all. 92% of registered voters, the last two mayoral elections, and this primary election, stayed at home because they didn't see any of the well-known politicians, quote unquote, name on name, that they wanted to vote for. Bill Daley raised over $8 million and lost. Lori Lightfoot was one of the least funded and one of the least names talked about. Nobody knew who she was. We knew she had served on the police board, and she had the tape to the McDonald shooting of 16 shots, but she kept that hid. Then she lied and said she didn't know anything about it. And finally, when she was pressed and it was told by those within the department, oh, yeah, she had the tape. She knew about it. She helped to cover it up. Then she finally came through and said, oh, yeah, I think I knew something about it, but that wasn't my place to say anything about it. They've tried to do everything they could to hush us. But you know what? Facts and truth can't be hidden forever. So I would say in the last 3 months, we've been invited to all of the media that otherwise they were trying to block us for the first 5 months.
Who?
Well, you had all of them. You had 2, 5, 7, 9, 32. And when it started getting out, because we were doing grassroots, going door to door and willing to talk on any outlet that would have let us speak, and crime was rising and rising, and they saw that nobody else had a plan or anything. Plus, with the help of the internet, social media is a beast. It made Barack Obama win the presidency twice. So what used to be able to shut a voice up in the old days, you can't do that now. You can put out one tweet and it go around the world within milliseconds.
Crime is one of the biggest issues in Chicago. This weekend alone, 69 people were shot. As mayor, how would your administration plan to curb crime in Chicago?
Well, my plan, if you go to my website, collinsforchicago2023.com, and once again, that's collinsforchicago2023.com, I lay out a public safety plan that is grassroots but common sense. We know that 54% of the crime today is committed by teenagers, young children, or young adults. So one of the things we would do immediately is enforce the curfew. And when I say enforce it, we mean that exactly that. There would be some fines to it. Parents would be held accountable. It wouldn't be the first time, but surely if your child is caught out after curfew the first time, you are going to get a visit from the police.
But that's out. That's law.
But it's not enforced.
So how would you enforce it? The last time it was tried to be enforced, a lot of people say, I'm a single parent. Mothers would say, I'm a single parent. I cannot control my child. I'm working 16 hours a day. How in the hell you expect me to
Well,
pay this fine?
that's where you have to have knowledge of how neighborhoods work. And that's why, because I've been a Chicago police officer and a community activist for nearly 30 years, working actually in the neighborhoods, in the communities, you realize that you have certain assets that can help out, such as churches, non-for-profit, and social organizations. And what you have to do is utilize those strengths and bring them together to say, you know what, Mom, maybe you do need a little bit of help. Let us try to help you out with that. And the other thing is bringing after school programs in that actually capture the attention of the children and actually challenge them to want to learn something and do something.
But some of the after school programs, administrators will say, okay, we'll accept that, but we're not a babysitting service and we're not a
Well,
psychologist.
that's why. Well, if you don't want to do social work, then don't become a social worker. That's what I tell them. If you don't want to be a police officer, don't become a police officer. Nobody's asking you to babysit. What we're asking you to do is your job and to do something that you're supposed to love to do. And so it really takes a unique person to be involved in social work, because that's exactly what it is. The key word is work. And so we're going to have to do that, because it truly does take a village to raise a child. And we're going to have to make sure that during school time, our children are in school, not wandering the streets. That means making sure that stores that allow children to be inside of them during school hours, we're going to fine them too. They have no business in there. They should be in school. We're going to bring back attendance officers, not truant officers, but attendance officers. These are officers that if your child is not in school, skipped school a day, or is at home sick, we'll know why that child was out of school. You won't have children that have been out 2-3 months, like I've ran into on the street, and nobody knows why, including the parent. Nobody understands. And then when you go to the house, they say, oh, well, they leave every day. I said, but did they bring home a report card? Did you ever see them sit down at the table, do homework or whatever? We know that there's some parents out there that have a challenge. I raised 3 kids. Of course, there are challenges to parenting. But I'm going to be a mayor that's there to help with every social program, with everything that we can do to help you out. But if you are going to blatantly not try to help yourself, then we're going to have to go down those other avenues. And that's just the way it's going to be.
As a current police officer, you see trials and tribulations of a police officer. One is respect from the Black community. As mayor, how can you plan your plan with the Chicago Police Department regain the respect from the Black community? How can you regain the respect? Right now, you see it night and day. A couple of weeks ago, you see them actually throwing garbage at the police car, and people literally getting on it. You saw several months ago, a couple of months ago, a woman, a teenager, twerking on a police car. And matter of fact, he was kind of reprimanded because they said he enjoyed it. So, what are your thoughts? How can you, as a police officer, because a lot of people that I've talked to say they do not respect the CPD. As mayor, how can you regain the Black community trust back?
Well, I think there's a number of different things you have to do immediately, and I just want to say this: I've been black for 53 years. There are a great number of African Americans within the black community who do respect the police, who do respect authority. We just have some bad apples within our community, but they do not represent the majority of us. So don't let the media give you that false sense that we all just disrespect the police, because there's a larger number of African Americans now than there ever was during the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s on the police force. And some of them are district commanders and deputies. But here's what I think needs to happen. Not only should there be sensitivity training, real sensitivity training, but we got to
Can
hire
you
more.
define sensitivity?
I will. Sensitivity training means actually being exposed to the various communities and understand their culture. Not just that I need to be careful what I say to somebody who's a different race to me, but do you understand the culture? When they sent me to Chinatown and I worked in Chinatown, I actually did my homework to find out what were some of the cultures of Chinatown, because they don't speak to you just walking down the sidewalk. Their culture is the women don't really speak. They just continue on with their day. You have to speak to the man first. Because I understood that culture, I built a relationship with most of the men in Chinatown. And so I would get information on different things that would happen, because I was respectful of their culture. We have to be respectful of the culture in the black community, Latino community, as well as the white community. But I'm going to tell you something. When you go in the black community, you can't go in there cussing out grandma or big mama, because big mama has a lot of clout. You can't be disrespectful to the seniors. You have to call the children and build a relationship with them. You can't just ride around in the squad car. You have to get out of there. You have to actually go in those little corner stores. Stand up there for a while, monitor, see what's going on. Say good morning to people that might not say good morning to you for 2 or 3 months. One of the reasons why I was able to get letters from a lot of the communities that I worked all over the city is I made the effort to learn the culture of that community. I made it an effort to see what their interest was. And that's part of the training that will happen under my administration.
The FOP is one of the biggest problem that Chicago people have, under especially some racist ideology represented by the president. As mayor, they keep on saying the contract with the FOP. Under your administration, how would you fix the problem with the FOP under the racial ideology and the contractual problem?
Well, first of all, one of the things you're going to have to do as mayor is there are 1,000,001 things that need to be done. But you must have a plan and a strategy of addressing those and putting the right people in place to make sure that those things get done, because you're only one person. But what I would do is, first of all, the Chicago police officers that put that uniform on every day, and I've worked with all of them: white, black, Polish, Asian, Japanese, Filipino, African, Ethiopian, you name it. I've worked with them, and there really are some good police officers out there. The majority of police officers are good, hardworking, honest police officers. But when it comes to the union, to answer your question is, we've got to make sure we hold those accountable. Our president that we have now, you know what? When he made those statements about January 6th, hey, we called him out on it. And he came back and he apologized. But we got to hold these people accountable. And then when it comes election time, we just can't talk about we don't like them in office. We got to vote them out. And what I would do as mayor is, you have to set a tone. And under my administration, it would have to be a tone of respecting one another and treating one another the way you would want to be treated. But where I saw there was a problem at, I certainly will be active in finding constitutionally what we can do to remove a person or change different things. You know, Martin Luther King said, "The law can't make you love me, but it can stop you from hanging me." And so that's why I say policy and procedures are so important.
The other trial and tribulation is judgment of the Chicago Police Department. Of that is 16-hour shifts that could impair police judgment in shootings, incidents, or even a traffic stop. What would be your plan as mayor to reduce police officers' work shift from 16 hours? They said it's mandatory.
Right. It has been mandatory. I've been out there 16 hours, sometime 18 hours. One time, 2 days straight when the riots were going on. I sat on a bus for approximately maybe 15 minutes, but the rest of the time I was out there while the riots were going on, they were destroying Chicago. One thing we've got to do, and this is where leadership is so important. It is so important not to just vote, but know why you voting, and does that vote serve you? Don't vote for somebody just because you think they got a familiar name, because Elvis isn't running. That's the only famous name I know. Michael Jackson isn't running. So don't tell me about, Vallis and Wilson and all them. Oh, well, they got popular names. Let me tell you something. If you that well known, you've done something wrong. And it's going to come up to catch up with you. What I would say is you have to have leadership that understands we need more policemen. You have literally maybe 5,500 to 6,000 policemen patrolling the streets to protect 3.5 million people. Isn't that scary? And yet you've got close to 150 to maybe 200,000 gang members out there known and identified that have committed murders and crimes. But you've only got about 6,000 out there on the street.
Would your plan is to increase that number?
I would hire immediately 20,000 brand new Chicago police officers. And when I was asked this by a reporter from the Tribune and the Sun Times, he said, "Well, how are you going to do that in 4 years?" I said, when you go to college, they have morning classes and they have night classes. Am I right? I said, we would have the academy open 24 hours a day. We would train 2,500 in the morning and 2,500 that would go to night school at night. And another thing we would do to increase our hiring is we would up the pay scale to $130,000 to start. You're asking police to do a whole lot more than they used to do. It used to be just enforcing the law, but now we're doctors, we're physicians, we're psychologists. We have to identify a person we never met before and say if they're mental, rather than they might just be angry or high or inebriated. We have to now put our hands inside people's cavity chests when they're shot multiple times. We have to apply tourniquets and different things. We're doing medical procedures, so you're going to have to pay for that kind of work. That's a lot of work. And it's also a lot of stress on the mental of officers who are out there and work.
As a police officer, this has been going on for quite some time. When there is a gunshot victim, either they're a gang member or a random victim, it's and on the street they just let the person lie there and bleed out. Under your administration, is there a rule in the police code? There's something that we don't know in the public, that when a person is shot, either the police or somebody else shoot them, do they just let them lie there without receiving medical assistance?
First of all, when you come to a gun scene, the first thing is to secure that scene and find out if anybody is injured. Unfortunately, through experience and training, there's only so much physically an officer can do when a person's been multiply shot in certain parts of the body, and that person is practically gone. It's sad to say, but
is it you
the
don't try
best
to
you can
revive
do.
them?
Well, sometimes you can do more damage, and officers have been sued for that because they'll say, well, the officer got down there and did what he could with his training, but training is limited. You have to know that as well. And sometimes you can apply pressure. There might be pressure that's you shouldn't be applying because we're not doctors. We're not doctors. And the medical training that we get is very limited. Uh, and so you have to assess if there's a way that you can help other than getting the ambulance there, securing the scene, holding the person's hand, trying to talk to them, uh, trying to put a tourniquet around as close as you can to the wound. But sometimes there's damage with these new military style weapons that nothing you're going to do, it's already done. And
And
unfortunately,
that's why they call it, they just let the person lie there to bleed out.
well, they don't let the person lie there to bleed out. They can assess and take a look and see what can they do. But I don't know of one officer that just lets a person just sit there and not render some type of aid. I've never seen that. If I had it, I would have said something about it, but I've never seen that happen. Officers do everything they can to preserve life. That's why we took this job in the first place, is to enhance the quality of life and to preserve life. I don't know of not one officer of any nationality that I've ever been around, and I can only tell you what I've seen, that would just let a person lie there. I've seen officers go as far, and I've done it myself, is to put your hand actually inside a person's body to try to hold back the bleeding, to hold a person up, to do chest compressions, and apply a tourniquet, you know. And like I said, the training that we receive is very limited. But you also have to keep this in mind. You can do everything you possibly can. And here's the one thing that has to change. They still will sue the officer in the city of Chicago
Under
after
your
doing everything they
administration,
can.
would you change that though?
No,
Because
under my administration, we would do everything we could to save you and document that as we are doing now. But I certainly would not make the Chicago Police Department an open check. And that's what some civilians think, is that they won't sue the person that shot their loved one 32 times. They will sue the policeman and say, wait a minute, he wasn't a trained medical profession. And he'll say, well, they gave him this amount of medical and he did everything he could. And you see that in the news now. There was an officer that was recommended to be fired, and he did everything that was right, everything by the book, but yet the family still wants to sue him. And that's a lot when you've done everything you possibly humanly can do.
would you change that rule?
I would only thing I would change is making sure there's due process and making sure before we release any video footage that there's a thorough investigation and that there's a transparent but open investigation, but that make sure before we start putting things out, we know the facts of 'em. Not within the first hour, first 30 minutes saying that somebody was shot and the police did this, that. Complete the whole investigation so we understand what's going on.
It is optional for a Chicago police officer to receive psychological evaluation. Majority do not take that option. However, after going to a murder scene, after another murder scene, it is a burden on the mindset. As mayor, are you going to change that rule from optional to a mandatory quarterly psychological evaluation so an officer can get the help he or she needs for their mindset?
I would still make it continue to keep it optional, and I'm gonna tell you why. Doctors operate all the time, and sometimes they make mistakes, and patients die. You do what you can do. Is it easy for any human being to be in such situations? Firefighters do the same thing. They go in sometime and they find burnt up, bodies and different things in buildings, and that is truly a heavy hit on the mind. But that's where your training also comes in. Those who serve in the military, if we took our time for every military soldier to throw him in to mandate that he all of a sudden go see a psychiatrist, you'd have nobody on the battlefield. We lose a lot of wars. You'd have no policemen on the street. It is through experience, camaraderie, and training that officers learn how to deal with these situations because they are nothing normal. It is not normal for a lot of the things that these officers experience.
But that's the number one thing that a politician would say. The police needs more training. What else you think a police officer needs? Because there's a lot
Well,
of bad judgment on a police officer And part of that is the 16 hours. Part of that, not receiving adequate psychological evaluation when you look at those reports, and their judgment are impaired. So again, a lot of people say training, 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 but you can train somebody and they can have absolutely all the training that they need and they can still make the bad decision.
Well, here's the thing. What you're trying to get to is you want to see a perfect police department.
I'm not saying that, sir.
Well,
Well,
let me finish this because I believe in being truthful and factual. There's no perfect person. So even with training, experience plays a bigger part just as much as training. And I know when I first came on the job, uh, I had an experience with seeing dead bodies on the street because I grew up in the Henry Horner Projects and I grew up in one of the poorest neighborhoods in the city of Chicago. So there was always shootings and gang fights and whatever. And unfortunately, as a young child, there were times when I saw members of my community shot dead over drugs and violence. And so when I went to the academy, that experience uh, somewhat prepared me for to do what I do as a policeman when I get to a crime scene because it was nothing new to me. I shouldn't have had to see it as a young child, but life's not perfect. That's the way it is. What I'm saying is we have to keep in mind that our police officers are human beings that come from the community. They're your brother, they're your father, they're your mother, they're your children. And with training and everything else, we have to understand that that's all we have and we have to work with what we have. We have to be honest about that and say, wait a minute, could mistakes be made? Most definitely. Doctors make mistakes all the time. There are a couple in the news today that are being sued for, surgery that they perform and they made a mistake because they're human beings. And with all the training, with all the experience, sometimes mistakes happen. And what we have to do is instead of throwing the baby out with the bathwater, say, let's just study, try to improve because we're never going to be perfect, but let's still try to be open minded and improve. And we have to remember this. The news media doesn't show it, but every minute on the hour, a police officer somewhere in this country is saving a family member's life who just had a heart attack or a stroke. And we have to understand that they do the best that they can. Now, for those officers that violate people's constitutional rights and who are disrespectful, we will deal with that. I will fall on them like a ton of bricks. But for those who are 99% of the good ones out there that do the good work, I have to back them up. I also have to re-educate our citizens on what we can do to support them because they are putting their life on the line. You can't go to any McDonald's and they're going to jump in front of a bullet for you or help solve a situation. But a police officer you never met before in your day on your life might be their first day on the street. They're already ready to jump in front of that bullet for you.
but some people would disagree with what you just said. So how can you, like the people would sit there and say those things, and you have people that will say,
Well, there are
I
people.
heard it, I heard this before,
Yeah.
and it's like the lolly gang. So
Well, the way I
how would you
explain it
respond to
is
that?
easy. There's some people that believe the Bears are not a good team. I happen to think they are a really good team. I think that they could one day make it back to the Super Bowl. But that's what life is about. You have to prove and be assured and have a strategy for to address issues. Are you going to please everybody? No. There's some people believe, why should I have to wear a seatbelt when my car has all of these new technologies that stops it from running into anything anyway? It's still important to wear a seatbelt because the next person may not have those technologies and hit you. What I want to do as mayor is gain the trust and build a coalition between the police department as well as the public. And that trust in that we all must be in this and we all must be involved and do the best that we can do as human beings. Will we reach perfection? Will we always agree on everything? Absolutely not. But here's what we do agree on. We agree that there's a constitution and we agree that there's respect and we agree that regardless of race, creed, or color, or gender, everyone must be respected. Everyone is due respect. and everyone has constitutional rights.
In 2013, the city of Chicago announced police recruitment, especially for minorities. 29% of blacks applied and 39% Hispanics applied. Blacks who applied passed the written and physical tests, however, failed the psychological evaluation exam. The 39% of Hispanics passed the exam. My question is, blacks still have a majority population in Chicago. However, it does not reflect that in the Chicago Police Department. As mayor, how are you going to increase the number of black police officers? Because the answer already have been answered. There are blacks that are still interested in becoming
Well, the first thing we
in
got to
law
do
enforcement.
is the hiring process has to be totally scrapped and reevaluated.
How?
I've been saying that since day one, since I first got on the job. First of all, they take notice of when they do applicants uh, just in name only. We need to make a thorough and a precise strategic move to hire more minorities. It's not going to happen any other way.
But when you say the word minority, what do you mean?
I mean, black, Latinos, and others.
But
Brown.
Latinos is already in there.
Oh, I understand they're in there, but let's say this: it's not represent the number of them that are within the community, just like it doesn't represent all of the blacks in the community. And to me, that's because there is not a strategic plan to go out there and build the relationship of trust of saying, hey, look, you can represent your neighborhood, you can represent your community, and this is one way to do it, and we need you. You can help to make a change. That's one of the reasons why I became a Chicago police officer. So that within the black community in which I grew up in, and I'm a black man, I'm proud to be that they would see a positive influence. And if something was going wrong, I would be in a position to speak out against it from within inside. And I think that's what has to happen. We have to make sure that we're hiring those who really have a love for humanity, pride in their community, who really want to serve, not just somebody who went and got a bachelor's degree. Because you could go to school and get a degree and say, oh, well, I'll take the job until something else comes. I really don't want to work with people. And I've heard that before. Then why'd you take this job? We really want to look for those from those communities that we serve the most and need us the most to make sure they have representation. And as the next mayor of the city of Chicago, that's exactly what I'll do.
CTA is another issue plagued with crime. As mayor, what will be your plan to assure rider safety on CTA?
Well, we just took the mayor had a new plan for the last 3 years, every other week, and it has failed on CTA as well as within our communities. Crime has went up 400%. It's just absolutely ridiculous. They don't have a plan to begin with. She doesn't have a plan.
What
Neither
will
do
be
any
your
other
plan?
candidate. My plan is simply this: enforcing the laws that are on the books, making sure that you do public service announcements, making sure that you also institute and enforce the curfew laws, and also making sure that we bring back those teams that we need, such as undercover teams that would work on our transit, making sure that we would have, uh, make sure that we fully staff our transit police force. Right now, it's not fully staffed at all. And yet the city's getting money to staffing. But guess what? We don't have the officers to do it. We've had 3,000 officers retire within the last year. It's ridiculous. You can't, you can't have an army if the soldiers keep leaving. And they keep leaving because of poor leadership and even poor policies.
Tax is another issue. The mayor is going to increase property taxes. You say increasing taxes is not the way to go. Why and how can you reduce taxes in the city?
Well, I'm glad you asked me that. COVID hit us hard, but high taxes in Illinois and in Chicago have been forever, for decades. And yet we're not able to build. And that's because the politicians take the money and do something else with it and overtax us. And it's a burden on our economy, especially right now. What I would do is take everyone's taxes in the city of Chicago business owners, property owners, homeowners, uh, commercial owners, and where your property tax is at right now, I would cut it in half, lower it by 50%, and then freeze it for 15 years. And that would be enough right there, a great start to start to regrow the economy. Could you imagine
But
your
what is your plan in order to do that?
well, it's the first part is to lower it by 50%, freeze it for 15 years, and then take a look at those who are not paying taxes, such as we have the market here. We have the stock market here in Chicago, the trade market. They pay absolutely nothing. What I would do is put a 10-cent tax on every financial transaction that they do. And they do billions per minute. The other thing is we are the hub of transportation across the country, north, south, east, and west. We've got trains and planes coming through here. Put a city 10-cent tax on those as well. That right there is
But
billions
some
of
people
dollars.
can say we can reroute it to, let's say, Wisconsin.
It's not
We
going to
can
happen. It's not going to
we can
happen.
reroute it to Iowa. We can reroute it to Indiana.
And I would say you are living under a falsehood. No, they cannot. No, they cannot. They've talked about it. They've threatened it, but there's no physical way to do it. They're stuck here for the next 50 to 100 years. And what they do is they try to put that out there so that you won't do it. Let me tell you something. They said, first of all, that when the lottery was allowed to be here in Illinois, it would take care of the schools. Am I right? They said that's going to be enough to fund our schools if you let us have the Illinois lottery. How long have we had the Illinois lottery? And yet our schools are still in debt. Then they turned around and they said, we're going to do marijuana. And marijuana, oh, it's going to be the brainchild that solves everything. And that hasn't happened. Then they said, oh, let me sell the parking meters. And I don't know if Daley was drinking the same thing maybe Kim Buckner was drinking, but that did absolutely nothing for us. It is time we come up with real solutions. We've got goods and services that have to come through Illinois because that's the way the system is built. And we're going to already get ready to have a third airport out south. There will be a third airport. There will be a hub for bringing in goods and services. And we know that Amazon's involved in that. We're going to put a tax on that as well. But when you take a look at all of the taxes that the city has on, from your gas you put in your car to the gas you use to heat your home and cook with, where's all of that money going? Where's all of it going? Nobody can tell you. Until now, we see in the newspaper that Mayor Lori Lightfoot is being sued along with the city of Chicago because she's taking community block grant money, which is federal money, and it's earmarked to go in our communities, to build our communities up, to help with job training, to help with after-school programs, to help with homes, to help keep our streets without potholes, to fix up our sidewalks, to invest in our schools, and yet they're taking all of that money and giving it to corporations.
As mayor, will you get rid of the water bottle tax?
Absolutely.
As mayor, would you get rid of the plastic bag tax?
Yes.
As mayor, will you continue with the no water shutoff policy in the city?
Absolutely not.
Why?
Because you know what? Some people will take advantage of that, and it will fall more on us who do follow the law, who do work hard to do that. There are already systems in place and programs in place that if you're having a hard time paying your water bill, there are systems in place to actually help you with that. But this is simply a campaign trick, a politic trick to say that, oh, if you don't pay your water bill, we're not going to shut it off. Then how do we pay for it to make sure the water is clean? That money has to come from somewhere. How do we make sure it's safe to drink?
However, sir, the statistics beg to differ because they said people are still paying their water bill. People are not that far behind. So what you say to that?
Well, they just brought this law out and it's not even being used yet. So we're just going by word of her mouth. But I'm telling you now, it is another stupid policy to say, if you don't pay your water bill, see how many people continue to pay it. Because guess what? Some people water bills and some of these landlord water bills are tens of thousands of dollars. And those dollars are needed to make sure we treat the water so it's safe for our children to drink. Remember, this money goes to also make sure that the water in our schools are safe to drink out of those water faucets, that there's not lead poisoning that our children are receiving. We have to be sensible and realistic. You know, some people think everything in life should be free and that would solve all our problems. No, it won't, because unfortunately, you have those in society who will take advantage of anything.
What will be your business plan for the city of Chicago and how the Black community can get their fair share of the businesses?
I think one thing we have to make sure that business is attractive, first of all, in Chicago. And I think the property tax thing that I just mentioned to you, lowering the property tax about 50% and also freezing them for 15 years is very attractive. Also taking a look and actually sitting down with the business community to say, what are some of the things that also would help to grow your business that we can do and allow you to hire more employees who can then become more homeowners and more more property owners. And one of the things we have to take a look at is it's too hard and it takes too long to get certain permits to get things done in the city of Chicago. And then some of those permits are just overcharging you. It almost makes you not want to do it when you compare them to other cities around us in other states. I think we have to take a broad look at what's being done around us that attracts businesses to want to leave and go to those and then become competitive. That makes common sense. We need to be competitive.
What will be your first 100 days look like in your administration?
I think the first 100 days, immediately you will see a police presence. You will see a mayor who's actually out in the communities. I think you will see brand new policy changes. And I think you will see definitely an opening of the books and a wide audit. You will see education and business forums, committees put together. You will see non for profit and churches committees put together. But most of all, you will see the mayor out and about the first 100 days with a smile on citizen faces saying, I notice it's a lot safer. I noticed that more lighting has been put in neighborhoods that didn't have any lighting. I noticed that the roads that had potholes that are in communities that never get any attention are being fixed. I noticed that abandoned buildings are being rehabbed. They're also going to notice a mayor who takes the time, like I said, to actually walk through various communities and make sure that these things are implemented. But most of all, here's what you will notice right away is that the carjackings are almost invisible, done with. The open carrying of illegal guns on the street, done with. I will bring back stop and frisk with the use of our body cameras and car cameras.
But some judges say that's illegal.
It's not illegal. It was upheld by the U.S. Supreme Court. And let me tell you something. It is not illegal. That's
They
why
fought that in New York.
they fought it in New York and they brought it back. They went from 3,000 murders to 300. You can't argue it does work. And with new technology, it gives transparency and accountability to the public. So we're just not going to just stop people. You're going to have to come up. The officer's going to have to call it in. He's going to have an event number, and he'll be on a timer. And he'll have to justify that stop. Now, our policemen, most of them out there are older policemen. They know, they have a sense. They're in the community. They know when something looks out of hand. And what we got to do is stop having criminals who feel willy-nilly and free to walk around with guns in their hands and stop people at the stoplight and carjack them or shoot them or drive off with their children in the back of the car. This is what you will know immediately within my first 100 days is that, man, Chicago feels a lot safer and downtown is starting to grow. And in the communities, for the first time, I feel safe letting my child go to the park. You're going to hear that.
Please give intellectualradio.com/ oh, let me ask this question. Just going to squeeze this one in. Let's say, for example, and it's not saying reality. Let's say, for example, it doesn't work in your favor. Are you willing to help your opponents?
I'm willing to work with anybody who is sincere about making the necessary changes that we need in this city. I'm willing to do that. If I don't win, if I don't get the people's uh, a vote to get in, I'm willing to work with anybody that is sincere. But will I just jump on the bandwagon of any clown? Absolutely not. I will continue to work in the communities. I will continue to go to the courts. I will continue to march up and down, as I have done in my early part of my life and now, to make those necessary changes. I was one of the gentlemen when they wouldn't give carry and conceal in Illinois because they didn't want it in Cook County because the majority of Cook County is African American. I'm the one who helped McDonald get the attorney because I was one of the police officers that did the report when he got broken into for the third time to get carry and conceal because I thought it was unright and unconstitutional for African Americans not to legally have the choice to be able to protect themselves because the police can't be everywhere. So I know what it is to take on the system.
Very quickly, will you keep Superintendent Brown or no?
Oh, no. I would bring Brown down and push him out of town.
Okay. How can people get in contact with you for more information?
For more information, please visit my website at collinsforchicago2023.com. That's Collins for Chicago, FOR 2023.com. You can also call our campaign office at 773-739-8082. That's 773-739-8082. And let me tell you something. If you took a look at these last three elections, a lot of incumbents lost. A lot of people with all the money and so-called famous names lost. It is really up to us, the people, to make the change, and we have the power to do that.
All right, sir. It's never a dull moment with you in the chair on the drive. Don't be a stranger to the Drive at 5, okay?
But thank you so much. God bless you.
All right. Thanks to Earl Winfrey, our executive producer. Wanda, who is behind the scenes. You guys have a wonderful week.